working now. Let's see where we're at when it comes to this in our field of view. Hello? Hello? Come on. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. Yep, cool. Just going to raise that up just a tiny bit first. All right. So I'm going to press record.
Cool.
Button's working. Yep, there we go. Okay, so we're recording now.
Nice one.
So,
Do you want me to do a little to line up? There you go.
nah.
That's
Oh, yeah, we can.
Thank me later.
I keep forgetting you're a studio wizard. So I'll just do my little spiel. How would you like me to introduce you?
In what way? Like, I don't know. Andy O'Neill, a musician or whatever. I don't know. What am I?
What am I?
What is this? What is this?
What is this? Why am I
is
speaking like Captain Kirk?
this?
All right, so I will introduce you, and then we'll just kick off from there.
Brilliant.
Sweet.
Cool,
Okay, here we go. So shake it out, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Jazz hands, jazz hands. Here we go. Hi guys, and welcome to the Performing Musicians Podcast. Today, I'm lucky enough to have a chat to my old mate Andy O'Neill, bass player, guitar player, musician, singer, songwriter, studio wizard, and all-round decent human. How are you, mate?
Oh, mate. You should come to all my gigs and introduce me like that. That'd be brilliant.
I'll be your hype man. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm great, and it's absolutely lovely to see your smiling face.
Nice one, mate.
Feels like it has been a while, hasn't it?
It's been a while. It's probably been a year and a half.
Yeah.
That's
About how long since. Yeah, it would have been pretty close to when we left UK, right? So yeah, I think that was about October-ish, 2019.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, wow. A lot's changed since then.
Well,
hasn't it?
just a couple of things, not much. Just to kick us off, can you tell us a bit about yourself? What do you do, and how long have you been doing it?
Okay. So I'm a musician. I don't really know how else to say that. I do a bunch of different things. Like I guess a lot of people, probably a lot of guys and girls you get on the show are saying similar thing. I am a bass player, but I kind of ended up almost by accident becoming a guitar player. As just kind of played a few different things, and I'll do that as like my main gig, but I also record and songwrite and kind of push that side of it as well.
Nice one. And where are you from originally?
Different things. I'm from Albany, Western Australia, down the very bottom. In fact, I would say probably geographically opposite, about as far as ways we could get from each other, right? In Australia, from where you're from
Brisbane.
I'm right down there. You're right up there. So, little kind of, I'd say semi-rural kind of town. Like it's still a decent town. Like maybe when I was growing up there, I guess I don't actually know, but I'm going to guess somewhere around 25,000 people or something. So, or 30,000 people or something. I grew up there. Yeah. That's where I did my schooling and first started delving into music.
Was it actually Albany, or was it outside of Albany?
It was, yeah. So I mean, I don't really know. I grew up in a little, well, they're smaller than a town in Australia. We call them like a town site, called Ellicott, which is kind of between Albany and Denmark. The little town in Australia, not the country
with the snow.
Otherwise there's a fair bit between.
I was going to say that covers a lot of ground, bro.
Kind of between there. There's, it was beautiful spot. My parents were teachers, school teachers, and had like a little plot of land, well, quite a big, like I guess a small farm, I guess you call it, about 30 odd acres, I think. Grew up there until I was about I guess 16 or 17, and then moved up to the Big Smoke, to Perth, to study music, which is where I went to Whopper. And
which was when you had a Whopper, and that changed your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eh,
So WAPA is, for the people who don't know, is West Australian Academy of Performing Arts,
There
which
we
is
go.
one of the big music, I guess, colleges, universities in Australia.
On the West Coast, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they've got a pretty good reputation now. I mean, even back then, when I was there, it was an interesting experience. I mean, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to talk about, like, you know, when I was a little tucker, or
Mate, this is where we're going. We want to know
okay, cool.
We want to know the full Andy.
What was the actual question again?
Where are you
Started
from, and
rambling.
how long have you been doing what you've been doing?
Well, I've been playing music for a long time, but I guess I started quite late in life. I was probably, I mean, as far as like most pro musos go, I guess a lot of them, you know, had guitars and whatever in their hands when they were born, basically. So I was, I think, maybe 12 or 13 or somewhere around that. Maybe 13. I played trumpet as a youngster in the school band. I had a bit of a funny, actually, that just kind of reminded me. Yeah, I did have sorry, I should go back a bit further. My dad was kind of a school principal, but he was an amateur kind of songwriter. He picked up guitar as I guess a late teenager and late teens, and taught himself some chords and some Eagles songs and stuff like that, I guess. And he was really into country music and country music and Americana kind of stuff.
Yep, 70s, 80s sort of stuff.
Yeah, more 70s.
Yep.
More 70s kind of stuff.
Bands like Kansas and America and things like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he loves like the kind of more soft rocky kind of stuff,
yep.
So like Bread and like those kind of.
Man, I grew up listening to Dr. Hook, so I'm vibing on what you're saying.
Yeah, cool. So that was, I mean, and it's it's funny thinking about that now with the kind of stuff I'm listening to, but they're kind of coming full circle. But yeah, well, I guess we'll get there. So he was when I was so I've got an older brother. We're all 2 years apart. I've got an older brother. There's me. I've got a younger brother, and then a younger sister, all 2 years apart. So four of us in total. And music was a big part of our childhood. My older brother played drums and had piano lessons. My younger brother was just a bit of a wizard piano player. Did all the grades, and he was also a bit of a little boy soprano kind of vibe until his voice broke.
Yep.
And in little country town, you know, Australia, without really any vocal tuition, didn't really navigate his way through that, unfortunately, which is a shame. So he was kind of the star music kid of our family, to be honest. And then my younger sister, again, was she played piano as a kid and a bit of guitar, and mostly sang. She's a really good singer as well. So yeah, I was just kind of like not really the star musician in the family by any stretch of imagination. That said, I did pick it up quite quickly, and then, you know, like we'd all, you know, my dad would sing songs constantly around the house. We'd all be kind of part of that. And then I think when I was about, I guess, yeah, so I started playing trumpet. There was, in school band, there was, you know, the big, you know, when I was in year 6, I think it was, the high school, we had a primary school that then you'd move on to the high school, part of the same thing. And the high school band leader guy comes down, you know, all serious, and they do like, I didn't really know what was happening at the time, but it was a really basic oral test. So, you know, they sat down with the piano at the front of the room, and, you know, boom, 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 boom. Which one's moving higher and which one's moving lower?
I thought they were going to ask
really
you to pick
simple.
like intervals.
No, not intervals. I mean, like the most basic oral training you can get, but then oral test or whatever you can get, but also doing things like playing chords and saying, like, if I remember correctly, this is a long time ago, but like,
happy
how does
or
this
sad?
make you feel?
Yeah, happy or sad?
Happy, sad, and like how which does this chord sound out? Which chord in this sequence sounds out of place, or you know? And then doing things like I remember they played like a bunch of I don't remember anything. I don't know how I'm remembering this. They had like they played intervals, and then it was like a bit of a memory game, like which interval. Anyway, for whatever reason, maybe because my dad had been playing so much music around me as a kid and stuff, I did really well in that. And they I remember the guy pulled me in. His name was Colin, and he said, right, so you've you've aced the test. You got first in the class. Good on you, mate. And I went, oh, that's cool. And he said, so you can pick. You've got the pick of any instrument you want to play in band. And I went, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, what are the options? And they're like, well, you got flute, you got clarinet,
You got the sousaphone.
you got the scissor, you got the tuba. And I'm going, oh my God, this does not sound good. And then and he said, and then you got we have saxophone and trumpet. And I was like, well, definitely saxophone.
Yeah,
because
it's cool.
I don't know why that was a cool instrument to me. And I remember even as a kid thinking that was just such a moving, like kind of sounded like a voice. And it was just like, had all this, it was this amazing instrument to me. And this guy, Colin, the band leader, was a trumpet player and said, oh yeah, saxophone's great. How about trumpet? And basically talked me into it. But unfortunately, I've thought about this fair bit over the years. I wonder if I had picked up sax, because I did not gel with the trumpet. It was not something I enjoyed playing.
You may well have stuck with it.
And then I would have no bloody gigs. So I'd be a saxophone player.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
So maybe he saved my bloody life doing that. So anyway, so then I went through that, and then I ended up picking up bass and playing with my brother, who was playing a bit of drums in his like little punk band as a teenager. And that was kind of my introduction to electric bass, where there was a family friend. His name's Mikey, and their whole family were like musicians, and dad played guitar, playing like I don't know, like old Rolling Stone stuff, and rock, 60s 70s kind of rock stuff. It was awesome. And Kurt, one of the sons was a singer, and Mikey played everything, but he was playing bass in that band, and I just loved Mikey. He's still one of my favorite humans on the planet.
Yeah,
and he just had so much vibe and energy playing that bass that as a kid, I remember seeing him and just going, oh man, I want to do that. I want to be that guy.
That's amazing.
So I was drawn to the instrument because of him, and I've thanked him profusely many times since. Usually after a couple of beers. But yeah, really, that was a big inspiration, influence for jumping, for wanting to jump on the bass. And so I did that, played a bunch of like pop punk and, Rage Against the Machine.
So how old were you there?
I'm going to say 13, 14.
Right, yeah.
Through to 15, 16.
Yeah.
At which stage I had a bit of a blip in my life at school. School wasn't really, things weren't really happening there. I kind of made a little bit more sense of it as I got older, but at the time I really didn't know what was going on. It got really quite dark, and was kind of both. So I'd been at this same school for a long time. I was 15 and was asked to leave the school. And kind of at the same time, me just kind of going, I got to get out of here. So I went to another school, one of the other schools in town, and then did the TE. I don't know what like, I guess like A levels for the Brits, or what do we call? What do you call them on
TE scores? Yeah, you'd say A levels probably. But I mean, it's funny. The TE score is sort of a combination of A and O levels.
Right.
Because the TE score,
right. I never really understood that A level thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the A levels are more the basic ones, and the O levels are more specialized.
Right, sure. Yeah. So it's like, doing things like physics and calculus and English lit and those specialized kind of subjects, whatever. So I kind of I'd been a bit useless. Had always like done all right at school, and then had a bit of a moment that went on for a while, and then all of a sudden I was in this other school studying these subjects, and I'd never done any homework before in my life. It just wasn't it wasn't something I did. I was kind of used to being able to coast, and all of a sudden I couldn't, and it was a bit of like a wake-up call. And I remember sitting at the end of the first term, in this physics thing, and it was like, about refraction of light and all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I swear to God, I was not here in this class.
Oh my God.
And it was just like, it was really bad. So I ended up leaving school, and it was like this really interesting moment in my life. And the reason I bring it up is because it was kind of the pathway to music, where I didn't know what I was going to do, because I was kind of, faffing about, and the only thing that brought me joy at that point in my life was music. And I had a very visceral, emotional kind of connection to music from a very young age, and especially those teenage years when you're kind of, I feel like music, particularly when you're that age, has a, I don't know, you can connect with it in a really interesting way. It's really powerful.
It has
So,
much more of an importance, I think. I think,
yeah,
it's also helps you
yeah,
identify. I think it also helps you identify your clan
right,
when you're a teenager.
right, right.
So I know for me, when
Mm,
I was a teenager, once I discovered, like, because I got right into metal, like once
yeah,
when I was like 11 or 12, I think I discovered Iron Maiden, and then just
yeah.
into that, and then I
You
had.
know what's cool about you though is that you've kept like those roots. I think, like when I see you know being a, I mean, it's amazing what you can do on that instrument, man. It blows my mind.
I like to practice.
And I feel like, but that early part of your learning is still such a part of your life, which is so cool to me because I don't I don't necessarily feel like that early learning for me. It was more
Well,
the when I went to music college that
but I
like
think
maybe I had moments like that.
I don't think it's also. I think this. It depends what you feel is important, because I was just incredibly passionate about playing as fast as and intricately as I possibly could. Like, my goal
Yeah,
when I was 15 was to be the fastest guitar player that ever lived. Like, that was my goal. It was a stated goal.
yeah.
It was all I cared about.
Wow.
I didn't care about harmony. I didn't care about any of the actual schooling around it. I just wanted to be the best and the fastest there could be. So
Wow.
it was sort of, in a lot of ways, in hindsight, I think about it and wish I had taken a slightly different path and placed a little bit more importance on the emotional connection, because
Mm.
as I progressed technically, that tends to become,
Right.
what people recognize you for. So,
Uh-huh.
if people say, what's Ben like as a musician? Oh, he writes good songs and he can sing, but, why you want to see him play guitar?
Right. It
That's
becomes part of your identity
But that's
and
cool. That's
yeah.
something you can hang your hat on and go, well,
Yeah.
check out this guy because he does this. But it can also create a barrier. This is something that I've come to later in life. Create a barrier for
Mm.
you to actually go, am I connecting on an emotional level, or am I just relying
Mm.
on my tropes to get me through? And
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I think if you
Well, look,
establish
let
that,
me tell you. Do you remember I sent you that you put up that amazing video? It was like kind of a proggy, crazy instrumental thing. I don't know, what was that? Maybe 6 months ago or something?
the
Maybe a year ago? How long ago was
the
that?
the Heavy Six that was
Yeah,
in
I think it was
October last year.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, dude, that blew my mind. And I remember I sent. I don't know if I think I sent this in the said this in the message. Something like, it's rare to see music like that, like done. It's not just technical. You know, there was feeling behind that, and that was like I really felt like which I think is an extremely difficult thing to do. And you nailed that. So hey, don't doubt yourself too much, dude.
Oh man, like,
Yeah.
this is my path. This is the journey that I'm
Yeah.
on. And what I'm saying is, like, we've all got that path, and probably, I mean, and it's funny when you were talking about your sort of that blip you had. I had exactly the same thing.
Mm.
I moved from the city to
Ah.
the country when I was 15, and I
Wow.
moved to a little
Wow.
a little mining town. I moved from the capital city of the state to a little mining town, and
Wow.
I went from being getting A's across the board, getting academic awards
Mm.
every year without having to study, same as you,
Mm.
to moving to this little country town where there was no facilities, and I had long hair,
Yeah.
ironically. Everyone thought I was, I got called a trigger warning, but a faggot, like, every day, and like got hassled
Sounds
and
like
bullied.
Australia, mate.
Mate, so when you said
Yeah.
that, and
Mm.
I did the same thing. I retreated into music.
Mm.
But what I did was I focused. I mean, obviously, as I said to you before, when you're a teenager, you latch onto that emotional connection, and you read the words, and you get stuck right down into the meanings of it, and like a single passage of a song can like change your life, and it's all
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
once you're 20 years down the track, it's not as important. But when you're 15 and you're drowning, like, a line in a song
Mm.
can seriously sort of go like,
Yeah.
hey, this is how you change your life. So when you were saying that, I related
Yeah.
so much to that actually.
Oh man. Oh, cool. That's cool. I was just thinking there, those moments still happen for me. I definitely still have a very, I'd say quite an emotional connection to music, maybe more than a lot of my compadres, in the biz, but for better or worse,
Yeah.
but there are things that now when things hit me, I really like it. It's because it's like, it doesn't happen as often now, but when I do hear something that just like, recently for me, it was, maybe a couple of years ago, Phoebe Bridges' first album
Yeah.
blew my absolute fucking brains out. The tenderness of that and the lyrics were just so powerful. And
Yeah.
that knocked my socks off, that album. So many of the songs were so great. So it still happens to me, but less often.
I think
Yeah.
also, I mean, it's also
Yeah.
the context of it. I know that if, like for me, if things are going really well, and
Mhm.
I'm ticking boxes, and things are working quite well, it's the same thing. You sort of go, man, I really enjoy that song. But if you're a bit down, or you've had some shit
Mm.
going on in your life, or you've had a lot of stuff go wrong, or there's been a pandemic.
Sure.
There's been a pandemic.
Dude. Yeah.
It's
You're
those.
right. You're right. But it's like when you have these things in your life that impact you, it's like it somehow opens a bit of a,
Oh yeah.
gap in your chest.
But those
You get
those
hit,
those
and
emotions
then
stay with you though, because I remember I had a
yeah.
really, 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 really bad breakup with a girl that I'd been seeing for a long time, and it was really significant to me, and it was quite pivotal in my
Mm,
life. And
yeah.
she said, when I listen to this particular song, I always
Mhm.
think about you. And I listened to that song, and because of that context, that song took a completely
Sure.
different meaning. And so
Yeah.
every time I listen to that song now,
Yeah.
I'm right back where I was there before.
It's that trigger, isn't it? It's kind of like, when you can get there with like smells and
Oh
stuff as
yeah,
well, right? Like you walk past a plant or something and it's like, oh my God, I'm back at my grandma's
yeah.
house and I'm 5 years old. And yeah, it's amazing that, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's some kind of brain doctor that could tell us, that knows how the synapses work and
Well, that's
fire away, and could teach us tell us how that all works. But yeah.
I mean that sort of linkage there with with smells and sights, and it was part of the reason that we have
Mm.
like post traumatic stress disorder as well. So it works both ways.
Ah, right.
It triggers into
Right.
that. It writes those memories on your brain more profoundly if there's something that's
Ah.
that they're actually doing some really cool research at the moment with psychedelics to overwrite those memories.
I was actually just reading about something very similar to that,
Mm.
with the psychedelics thing, but more to treating depression and stuff. Man, they're doing some crazy research on this at the moment.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, yeah,
No, the
yeah.
cavemen
It
the
really
cavemen had it all over us with that stuff, mate. Those guys were having trip out parties all the time.
is.
Okay, so let's just get back to before you went away to study.
Right.
So this
Yeah.
chap that inspired you, would he say that he's your sort of principal influence?
Initially, yeah, definitely. He probably gave my first lesson, I would say. I mean, lessons were few and far between at that time in my life. I had him maybe give me a couple of like, hey, these are the names of the strings. Here are some notes. Here's a song. Like
Here's how to play
it was
Smoke on the
pretty- it
Water.
was- yeah, but it was like, I think maybe the first song I learned was maybe an Offspring song or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that happened, and then as I started to think, okay, this is maybe something I want to do, I started to play a little bit of basic guitar, and immediately started to write some songs I didn't show anyone.
Yep.
I think there are still somewhere. I hope I can find them one day. I know there are some cassettes
Yep.
that my dad had, like a 4-track. I know there are some cassettes somewhere that I had hidden away. Anyway, I'm sure it'd be like so cringy to listen to, but enough time has passed that it'd be great to listen to. So yeah, and started kind of thinking maybe this is something I want to do, and then once I'd made up my mind on that, it was like there was no doubt. It was like, this is what I'm doing.
And what
I had
age?
no other.
And what age was that? Like 17? Did you say?
Probably 15,
15.
15, 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it was as I was leaving school. I think I left school when I was. So I did that term or whatever, which is about a quarter of a year, different to the UK terms. Had about it. And then I was like, oh man, I can't do this physics. I don't know what I got to get out of this. So it was really funny. So I dropped out of those subjects and just went back to, so then they're like just the normal basic subject. I don't know. I can't remember. So then I went back to those, but then I kind of went from like, analyzing heavy literature to like, I remember the first English class I walked into was learning where to put a comma in a sentence. And I was like, I just remember thinking, I've made a grave error.
I immediately regret this.
I immediately regret it. It was just like, oh, what have I done, you idiot?
Oh, wow.
So, but also, actually, I should say, also at that time, there was a little music class that was happening in that school. And I didn't know any of the kids because I was kind of new to the school. But they were really nice and everyone was really welcoming and kind of encouraging in that little class as well. It wasn't like groundbreaking, but, we'll start to play some songs and whatever. So I made the decision to leave school. And surprisingly, because my parents were both school teachers and were definitely pro, you're going to be going to university and that's going to be your path. And I remember talking to my mum about it, and she, she's now a director of a university. So that's the kind of, they're very pro education.
She is the system.
She is the system. So I remember sitting down with her and her just saying, and it just blew my socks off at the time. She said, well, if that's what you want to do, then do it. Like, just like so matter of fact and just so supportive and so amazing. Just like, oh, well, if you don't think that's your path, then don't go down that path. And it, those moments when you're maybe a teenager or a kid or something, where you see, all of a sudden you see someone's talking to you as an adult and not a child.
Yeah.
And that was one of those moments where it was like, she was saying, this is up to you. Like, we've got nothing to do. This is your life, kind of a thing.
That's cool.
So she was amazing. My dad was amazing as well. Super supportive.
Isn't that funny? My dad's a teacher as well.
Oh, really?
Yep.
You know what, man? It's crazy. I know so many musos that parents are teachers. That's so funny.
Yep.
Wow. There you go. So then I left, but I was just really, there just wasn't much. I mean, Albany's a pretty small place and there just wasn't much help there at the time.
Yep.
That's actually since changed, which I'll talk about in a sec. But so I left thinking that there was a course in Denmark, this little TAFE course, which is like a kind of like a community college kind of vibe, I guess. The music, Cert 3 or something in contemporary music.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I got to get into that. So I set my sights on getting into that. And as I went to do that, I found, or someone found, my mum or someone found a guy in town called Stuart. Can't remember. I think it was Gartland or something. Stuart Gartland. And I had a couple of bass lessons with him. And he was great because he introduced me to like major scale tone, basic major scale tone harmony and theory. So like all the modes and understanding the structure of basic, contemporary music. No like written stuff, although I've done a little bit of that, with the trumpet playing. But so he was great and basically prepped me for an audition to go to WAAPA.
Yeah.
So then I remember it was like really, I don't know, it's all pretty blurry now, but I remember I had just a really short amount of time to prep for this audition. And I did something. I remember I did a jazz standard. I think it was Autumn Leaves but I found some crazy version on the internet. This is in the kind of like early days, I guess, still of the internet where, not super early days, but early enough where things were still floating about. And I found some guy did some version of it and it was all like, playing chords on bass and bit of melody and it, totally not what it, university would be looking for in a bass player.
Yeah.
So anyway, I rocked up to this thing and I remember I spent about the week before the audition and I got all the, is it like ABRSM, the classical grading system?
Yep.
I got all the theory books for like up to like grade 4 or 5 or something and just smashed them. Like studied like I've never studied before in my life. Just went through it for like a week and just crash coursed myself,
Yeah.
Because there were two parts of the audition. One part was performance and the other, it was like performance and maybe, I can't really remember. Maybe there was an oral part of it. And then there was also a theory section.
Ooh.
And you kind of had to pass the performance bit, and then they'd let, maybe if you got through, they'd let through, like, I think there were a lot of, I mean, this is, if I remember correctly, like thousands of people auditioning for these spots. So it was like,
Wow.
it was really hard to get into. And they'd let in, I think there were, I don't even know. I think there were about 30 odd kids in my year. So I auditioned for this thing, and this guy, Paul Pooley, is a bit of a, in his own way, kind of well-known bass player in Australia, especially back from the I guess the 80s and late 90s and stuff. He was doing a bunch of fusion stuff, and then he kind of settled into the education route. So he kind of was like, and then just kind of went, we'll let you through to the theory. So,
Right.
which was cool. I was like, oh, amazing. Okay. I almost wasn't expecting it. So I got through. Yeah. I'm sure I probably flunked the I don't know what happened, but then I got the call. Yeah, he actually called me up. So before I even got the letter saying I'd been rejected, he called me up and said, "Hey, Andy, so you haven't got in." I was like,
"Oh, what a gut punch!"
Like, it's like I was hanging everything on this, so it was hard. You haven't got in, and then he goes, "But what I'm going to offer you is single study units at the uni, in I can't remember what the unit was called. Single study. Single study. I can't remember whatever the fuck it was called, but it was basically like lessons. That was like what the unit for lessons was called. And he said, I'm going to offer you I'm going to wrangle it so you can do these units just like one a week. So basically you can get lessons. And the reason with me, and the reason I'm going to do that is because you're going to be able to get them like super cheap through like the whatever was happening with the
like a scheme, some sort of grant scheme.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, what a break! Like, so it's just so, and to this day,
what a cool guy.
No idea. Yeah. Well, Paulie's an interesting guy, and I think a lot of he's a I think for the record, I really like him. He's a hard ass, and definitely a lot of students struggled with his tuition. So let's just leave it at that.
This is a fairly common story.
Right. So I did the single study units for a year. I was a useless student, like I have been my entire life, but I did just enough. I did just enough to then audition the next year and got it.
That's amazing.
So then I got into like this. Yeah, it was what a. I mean, if he hadn't kind of, I don't know what he saw. So I later found out as far as I'm aware, he's never done this before, and it's just not something you do. You don't like offer like units to a student. It was a strange thing to do, and I don't know if I've ever even really asked him why.
Maybe it's worth a question, mate.
Yeah. So I'm eternally grateful for that. And that those early lessons with him were just such a big part of who I became as a musician later. So yeah, so then I fumbled about in uni for a while, and met a bunch of guys that I ended up playing with for many years, which are I would say the best things about those kind of institutions is you really meet what will become your network.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. Then, so I got into the contemporary music course and did that for a couple of years. So I did the single study thing, and then 2 years of the contemporary, and then I auditioned for the Bachelor of Jazz performance. Went into that. Shouldn't have really got in, to be honest, but somehow I got in. It was just so far beyond my ability at that time. But I fumbled about, and just, oh man, it was really, really difficult at that time at that university. And now a lot of my friends teach there. And they tell me it's changed a lot, which I really hope it has, because it was pretty hard.
So
back in
is
those
that
days.
the
I could really-
course subjects or what they expected from you, or
It was more, yeah, it was more the expectation and yeah, unrealistic expectations is probably the way I'd put it.
they're turning out a bunch of Jacko Pastoriuses?
Exactly, and it was just a lot of lecturers that, I mean, I'm not afraid to say it, that a lot of guys that were just bitter, extremely talented, bitter people.
Yeah.
Kind of like I just always got the vibe these guys like, what the, I could be playing anywhere in the world and I'm teaching this fucking guy, like pointing at me.
Yeah.
And I definitely got that vibe a lot. So and I think a lot of the other guys did. I think there were 20, 26 or so, I don't know where I got the number from. I'm pretty sure that was the number that got into the jazz course. And then, as far as I'm aware, someone told me later, I dropped out, 6 graduated.
Wow.
So it was actually also unsustainable. So then they lost it. This is all kind of hearsay, but from what someone told me, they started to lose funding or lost funding or something. So now they're letting in hundreds and hundreds of kids, and the whole vibe's completely changed. It's less of like that, you are the. It was like, man, watching that movie Whiplash. Is that what it was called?
Whiplash.
It was a little bit, honestly, a little bit too close to home for me. And people were like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." And I was like, "Man, this is." Yeah, I know it was Hollywoodized, but it was not far off that.
I've spoken.
Yeah.
I was speaking to someone else, another guest in the podcast who had a similar experience, and it's almost like they want to burn you down. They want to burn you completely down, and then make you feel terrible about you. So it's almost like the breaking down in like a military setting, and crush you down, and then rebuild you into like a model of what they think you should be.
And you know what? It took me, so I left there, I guess, how old would I have been? I guess maybe 23 or 24 or something, 20, yeah, somewhere around that. And I reckon it took me up until I was probably 31, 32. I remember having a conversation with Sib, my wife, a musical partner, which we'll talk about in a sec, and saying, "Hey, I think I'm over the Whopper thing."
God.
I was like, I finally feel like the weight's off my shoulders, and like it damaged me so bad, and it damaged so many of the guys who went through it. It was really, really bad. I can't tell you, I really can't say that strongly. And the other thing I would say about that place, and I'm definitely ripping them to shreds here, but it's changed a lot. So I'm really ripping
what it was,
archaic thing that doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
The other thing that, and I'm not sure if this has changed, I've got no idea, but the other thing, and I would say this is possibly, just a bit of a blanket statement you could say about a lot of these places, is that, so it's an arts degree, right? But there's nothing artistic about what they're teaching you to be. There was nothing in my course that was creative. And really, that's it. If someone was to say like, what do you, I don't think I'm a particularly good musician, but I think I'm really creative.
Yeah.
And I think that's got me a long way as a musician. So a place like that for me wasn't great, because now I've learned as I've got older ways that I can try and get my brain to work like a normal human. But
slow down there, Tiger.
Yeah. Well, there are things that I've had to, things move differently for me. So, an institute, any kind of, even school was like, that was, I don't know, I'm just not very good at like being super focused on a singular thing. Very skitty, scattery kind of, find myself standing in a corner, saying lyrics over and over.
Like
no, I'm not that crazy.
Project.
Yeah. I'm not that crazy, but there are, so places like that, I was saying this to Sid the other day. We were talking about the Whopper thing. I was like, places like that, it's like, it is the arts, but they're not training you to be the artist. They're training you to be the paintbrush. So if there's, the artist, they're training you to be the guy that can be used by an artist.
Yeah.
So you come out of these institutions maybe, and you can play, 30-second notes at whatever speed, and hopefully you can groove, and hopefully you've got technical facility and language that will help you be something for someone else.
Yep.
And and that's cool. That's a thing. I'm not actually shitting on that at all, because again, with the creative thing, there are kind of two different types of musicians. There are the guys that are more, I'd say, more like on my side of the camp, and then there are the guys that are the ultimate session guys and the ultimate
Technicians.
can and can be anyone, and
Yep.
can they don't necessarily even have their own sound, but they can sound like anyone.
It's that's an art in itself, the art of the side.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is. And I'm definitely not shitting on that. I think that's amazing.
It is amazing. It's ridiculous when you see
not,
those guys at work.
Oh man, it's cool. It's just not who I am.
Yeah.
So a place like that wasn't so good for me. And I don't think I wrote a song in the 4 or 5 years I was there. And then I came out of it, and about a year afterwards, I remember I put on a record, and I was like, or like a CD or something. And I remember thinking, this is the first time I've listened to music for pleasure since I started that course.
Good Lord.
Since I was a teenager. Yeah, because like all through that, it was all like forced. You should be listening to this. You should be listening. And some of it was really enjoyable, because I mean, I was introduced to so much great music. Like I got really into, like my Paul Pulley, my bass teacher through most of it, was really big on the Motown thing.
Yeah.
The James Jamerson stuff as a bass player, and then I got really into Donny Hathaway.
Stax stuff?
Yeah, a bit of Stax stuff. Yeah, Motown, like the Funk Brothers,
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But I got really into Willie Weeks, who was on this. But anyway, so that was really cool. So I got into some really cool, and then I started, as I started to get into more of the jazz stuff, I got into a bit more of the. I remember I was like obsessed with Herbie Hancock at one point.
Yep.
Like the Headhunters stuff.
Yep.
That kind of the early groovy fusion stuff. That was, I love that shit. So it was really cool to be introduced. So that some of it was, there was a bit of crossover. Some of it I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But also the jazz course I was in was really a bebop course. It was very much focused on that era of jazz.
So what was when did you do the heroin?
yeah. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why I wasn't getting
You
it.
need more heroin, man.
Yeah. But see, I actually love jazz. I mean, I don't really listen to much anymore, or play it ever. Or can I even really play it? Not really. But I love more like the swing stuff and like the early stuff, like Ella Fitzgerald and all that. The early Miles stuff. And, Chet Baker,
Kind of Blue, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I love that like the modal jazz stuff, the kind of easy listening. Once it starts getting a bit faster paced, I don't know. It's still cool. It's its thing, but I definitely wasn't in the course for those right reasons of wanting to study that. I just thought that's where I should be if I want to be the best musician I could be.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny you say that, because I never actually went to any formal music education. So all the music education I had, I got through private tuition, like just from having lessons with people.
Man, I reckon that'd be so cool though. Like,
Well,
I kind of wish I'd had that.
But it's more circumstantial for me, because as I said, I moved to a small town. The music course out there was just non-existent.
How long were you in the small town for then, before you moved back to Big Smoke?
7 years.
Yeah, right. So until you were like mid-20s?
No, early 20s. I moved out there when I was
20s.
15. I came back to the Big Smoke when I was like 21, 22. And I had
cool.
I went and worked in a mine, man. Like I worked underground for 5 years. Got an electrician. I'm a fully qualified electrician. Like,
I mean, I remember you telling me that, but
Yeah.
I didn't know you worked in mines. That's just. So were you playing gigs throughout this time or not?
always playing.
Cool.
And it was all original music. I never played any covers at all.
And were you fronting those projects or?
Not often. I was mostly the guitar player.
Yeah.
So pretty much all the time.
Yeah, I'm super interested about the vocal thing, because this is something that I've come to later in life.
Well, the vocal thing
and I
for me
wish
is
I'd
much
started
more.
younger.
Well, the vocal thing for me is much more inherent, because my mum was a singer. So
wow.
she was actually a singer in the 60s in Sydney. She sang with like the Easy Beats and bands like that in the 60s.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so she had a duo with another lady, and they They did some pretty big shows. Like I think she sung at the Opera House and stuff.
Oh, dude,
But then she got married, and she
that's
married.
so cool.
Well, she married like a record company guy, and she gave it all up. And then they got divorced, and then she married my dad, and then had like
Right.
spat out 4 kids, and that was. But we used to go up until I was about 15, 16, maybe even later. I would go probably once a month to the karaoke. They had the karaoke night at the
Wow.
Mount Isa Irish Club, and we'd go. And she was an amazing harmony singer and great piano player, so
Yeah.
we'd always go and sing harmonies. So
Wow.
I'd more often than not sing the main line, and she'd sing harmonies, and then we'd sort of swap around. And I was always in
Wow.
talent contests when I was a kid because my auntie was a frustrated singer as well. She's now like sings all the time in clubs and stuff. She's
Oh,
like
cool,
75
cool.
or something. But
Wow.
but my auntie and my cousins were all like really into singing, and so was I. So we used to do like every year. I'd be in like 4 talent quests around the local region, getting dressed up.
Right. So you were singing from a real youngster. That
I
was
joined-
like part
I-
of your life, your whole life.
Well, I was in
Yeah.
when I was in year 4, year 5. I got recruited into the Humpy Bong State Primary School Boys Choir, and it was run by this
Wow.
guy called Mr. Strachan, who was a like formally trained choral arranger. So we
Okay. Yeah.
would just practice like 4 days, like 4 days a week. I'd have choir practice, and
Wow.
it's probably it felt like 4 days a week. It was probably 2 days a week.
8 days a week.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we just did competitions, and I sang at churches. Like I read Bible passages in like the biggest churches in the some of the biggest churches in the state, and not religious at
Right.
all, like actively like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
anti-religion.
yeah.
But we won like the state like competitions and stuff, and I was a singer in that, and then I continued that right through to when
Oh
I
man,
moved
your
out the
mum
bush.
must have loved that. Hey.
Well, it was lovely, man. You know, and it's my mum just
Yeah.
always sings. So when she's
Yeah.
at the checkout, she's singing. When she's doing anything, she just sings all the time. So for me, it was just I've never had any vocal training aside from the choir
but,
stuff.
But you have.
Well, but most of
from a very early age.
most of the choir stuff wasn't formal. So there was no okay, here's the main line, sing the main line, read the dots. There was none of that. It was all just
Mhm.
here's your part, sing this part. And it's
Mm,
funny when
But I mean, that's way better for the ears and
Oh.
all the other.
and it's
you know.
also because I'm quite old. It was all pre-internet, so you had
Mm.
to learn everything by ear. And funny you were talking about like that thing in primary school. I got given this keyboard when I was about 10, and it had a whole ear training function in it. And I must have just spent like
Little
hundreds
keyboard.
little keyboard. It had like interval training things where to go.
Whoa.
It'd go duh, 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 and you'd have to go, what's that interval? And you'd have to find it. And
Wow.
in all these different keys, and then it'd play like a 5-note melody, and you'd have to repeat that melody, and then it'd get faster and faster and faster and faster until you'd be like,
So,
it'd go-
this is amazing.
yeah, it was an amazing thing, and I got this when I was.
I need that
10.
in my life now.
Well, it was only when you mentioned that training,
Yeah, yeah.
that test, I was
You
like,
remembered it.
oh yeah. Can I
Yeah.
I had not an inherent knowledge. I didn't know what it was, but I had a
Yeah.
feeling that was a third, and that was a flat third, and that was a fourth, and
Right.
that was a fifth.
And also having the visual aspect of a keyboard is
Oh,
amazing because you
so
can,
great.
it's like way more. I don't know. For my brain, at least, anyway, seeing a keyboard and it's very obvious where the intervals are compared to a guitar, where you can have a third there, or you can have a
Well, it's
you know,
inherently more logical.
or there.
The keyboard's more
Yeah, yeah,
logical.
yeah.
It's laid out. The guitar's
Yep.
ridiculous.
And you note there's only one spot for each note.
That's
you
it.
know? Yeah, yeah.
The guitar,
yeah.
you've got 6
So,
keyboards laid out side by side in slightly different positions. That's how I analogize it.
yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
that funny? All right, so you did the Whopper stuff, and you came out of that a bitter twisted,
Yeah, so
a
went
bitter
through
twisted
that,
husk of a man.
survived it. Just yeah.
Twisted freak.
So around that time was, I yeah, exactly. I met Siboney, my wife, around about that time. Probably just before I left. Just before I left, and wasn't her fault. No, but she was younger than me by a few years, so I think it was 18 or 19 around the time that we met, and I was 21 or 22, and she auditioned for this band that I had with my friend Blake. We had this idea of starting a high-end corporate function band and basically make a lot of money. That was our plan. We're like, no one's doing this in this town. Well, they were, but no one young. Everyone that was doing it was like over 50.
Yeah.
So we're like, we're young. We should do this. Like we should. So we did. And it became very successful. And we auditioned a bunch of singers, and Sib was one of them. And she got the job, obviously. And and then so we ended up together after a little while, and we're both different other people, whatever, it all kind of worked itself out eventually. And then after playing in that band for a lot of years, like I'm going to say 5 years or I think, so I was 26, but also playing a lot of gigs around Perth at the time with a bunch of different people. That was really like that training ground.
Yep.
Part
Getting the runs on the board,
Exactly.
Yep.
And I remember having that thing where I wouldn't say no to a gig. So I took on things I really should not have taken on. And, with some pretty embarrassing, results. Definitely, I remember the moment of thinking, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is stupid. I remember doing like a jazz thing on upright bass, which I'm terrible at. And just being like, this is not, it was just embarrassing. So, I did a lot of playing around that time, all on bass. And then we decided to move to the UK. We did a bit of a trip around. First, I guess that was about 2010. We did a trip around. We went through the UK and a bit of Europe, and then we went through a lot of America, basically kind of hitting up a bunch of the big music cities.
Yeah.
So thinking, well, definitely at the time we were thinking more America. We were thinking, well, maybe New York or
Nashville.
LA or Nashville.
Yep.
Yeah. They were kind of the big ones. And we thought, well, Sib had family in Scotland and a bit in London and stuff. So when we want to check out the UK, so we went to the UK. And we actually loved London. It was awesome. And then we loved America as well. We loved New York. But then when we started thinking about moving somewhere, we kind of had that wake up thing where it's like, oh, how are we going to get visas to go live in America? And it was much, much easier to move to the UK. So we did. So that's what we did. Yeah. So we moved over in 2011 with me as a bass player. Oh, sorry. At that time, just before we'd moved, we'd recorded an EP it was just under Siboney, with our friend Rick Webster, who's a phenomenal guitar player. In fact, you guys would really get along. Maybe you get him on the pod.
Yeah, cool.
He's a real dude, great songwriter. In fact, he won the John Lennon songwriting competition or some bollocks, whatever it's called. It's amazing. Yeah. He's a really great songwriter, great killer guitar player. He's one of those guys that kind of treads that line of what we're talking about. He can kind of play anything, but he's definitely got his own sound and his own vibe and his own groove. And I love his stuff. He's so cool. So we wrote some songs and went and recorded those and had like a little thing that we're putting out. And it was very like I'm going to say like very Motown influence, but kind of that era of like 2010 where the Duffys were coming out and the
Hilary Swank.
What was that? Yeah. What was that? Oh, more like, what was that chick? She did that cover of Fell in Love with a Boy. White Stripes. It doesn't matter.
It'll come to me next Wednesday.
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about, right? The UK chick, which come to me, she was great. So it was kind of in that kind of ilk. Well, that's what we're trying to be, and we had like horns on it, and it was really fun, but it wasn't great, because we were young and it was our first thing.
Yeah,
and you kind of figure it out as you go along, and so then we moved to the UK and we found out pretty quickly that it was going to be pretty difficult to just survive off being a bass player separately and a singer separately. I got a gig. I got a few of my early gigs in London. I started playing with this blues trio, which was awesome. That was like a great another little training ground experience. I'd never really played stuff like that before.
It's amazing how big the blues scene is in London, man.
That's crazy, man, isn't it? Yeah.
It's great.
And this guy was was really killer guitar player, and he kind of would have a different drummer on every gig. He was kind of going through a bunch of drummers. And we'd do these gigs, and he'd come pick me up in his van. I didn't even have a car. He'd pick me up in his van, and we'd drive like 2.5 hours out to the countryside somewhere. And I don't know, arse end of nowhere in some pub, with 4 old guys drinking ale, and we'd blast, loud, loud rock and blues music at him.
Excellent.
Full pelt.
Excellent.
But it was kind of great, and introduced me to a bunch of that music that I'd never really, checked out before. So that was really cool. And then got a gig playing with this function band, and that was like kind of like that uni thing we're talking about. It's like that became a lot of my network.
Yep.
I'm not sure if that was the same with when you landed in London, but the function band scene over there is kind of, it's like you see all the dudes that are doing all the tours on those gigs. That's kind of like where you hang out.
Yeah.
So I met a friend, Ruben Hassan, who's like just this brilliant drummer. I love him to bits, and a bunch of guitar players and keys players, and that I ended up playing with for all the years later. Ended up being in London for it was like nearly 9 years.
Wow.
In the end, which is just crazy. 8.5, something like that. So we found out pretty quickly though that we're going to struggle to just make that work financially. In fact, I mean, I'm saying that in like the nicest way possible. We were broke, so desolate broke. We went over with what we thought was a lot of money, and blew through it so quickly.
It's a very familiar story to me, mate.
Yeah, right. And we really, right. Most guys I talk to kind of have a similar story, and we really thought we were going to be pretty set up. But by the time we got a flat and paid the deposit, and because we didn't have any of the what do you call it, like the what are those like security check things they do on you, whatever that's called?
Oh, the
what's the word I'm looking for?
I forget as well. Yeah, we had the same experience. We had to pay. I think we had to pay 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
6 months.
So I think we got it down to 3 or 4 months. But but we also took on. I mean, this sounds so crazy now, and you're going to think this is crazy because you live there. We took on a 3-bed with the 2 of us.
Holy shit!
Thinking, I know, we were like absolutely crazy. I was like, I'll take 1 room. I'll put all my music gear in that room. That'll be great. Then maybe we'll get some housemates. And then after, I was like, hold on, this is. And then, because I was like, it's really hard to do the conversion thing when you're doing it off.
I've stopped now.
So I was doing the Aussie to pound, Aussie dollars to pounds thing, kind of like, oh, well, that's how much I was earning for a gig. And I do the conversion. I'm like, oh man, we can afford this. This can be easy. And then we started earning gigs, and I'm getting paid like 50 quid to drive for 2 hours and play this blues gig. And I mean, that was, ridiculously low, but and I was like, oh man, our rent was like outrageous. It was like $1,900 a month or something. And I was like, oh man, how are we going to make this work? So what happened was, and I'm not sure if you know this story, maybe you do. You could relate to it personally, I think, because I did get a teacher. So when I was in Perth in Australia and after uni, I did end up teaching quite a bit as well. So I was teaching in a bunch of, I had like, I think 3 schools I was teaching in, taught in a couple of academies for a while. I did a lot of private tuition. That's how I saved up all my money to move over. Yeah. And then, so I did do that. So I had a bit of teaching experience. And then when I moved over, I did get a couple of teaching jobs, but they were only going to pay at the end of the term. And, that's like, you basically get paid 3 times a year.
Oh
so
God.
I know. So I was like, okay, I know I got money coming in, but we need to pay the rent. And we're now into our credit cards. Never happened to me before in my life. I was like, oh man, too proud to ask for help, and yeah, it was pretty grim. Like we were eating, rice for dinner. And I remember, this is so far, I remember being in Shepherd's Bush and I was teaching, I had a guitar on my back, and I remember walking along the road and finding a £2 coin just sitting on the road. And it was like the biggest celebration, because then I knew, because I was completely out of money and I was going to have to walk back from Shepherd's Bush to Putney. And I was like, this was back in the days when you could use cash on a bus, which seems like a long time ago now. And I was like, yeah, because it was like, I think £1.30 to catch the
You
bus.
can ride the
So
bus.
I was like, I can ride the bus. That's how broke we got.
Oh my God.
It seems outrageous now to think about it.
Oh my God.
But so I ended up, whilst I was doing this teaching, but not really getting paid for it, we needed some jobs. So I went in, I walked down the street, wrote myself up this like CV that was like, what have you done with your life? Well, not much except for make some noise at people. But then I handed into this little pub a little bar on the high street, and they called me back kind of immediately and said, hey, yeah, come down on Friday, which was a place called Citizen Smith, which became Lost & Co.
Ah.
This is the bit, right. So, which for anyone if anyone's listening to this, that became a venue that we all played at a lot.
Yeah.
So I worked there for like a month or two or something, and met who would become some of my best friends through that little bar job, kind of my first real job. Apart from the teaching, it was like the first time I was like, I don't know, it was really, really fun though. I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a little bit too much. And yeah, so then I was working one day, and one of the manager guys, his name's Jimmy, who's actually from Perth. He now lives in Perth, which was kind of bizarre. But he said, "Hey man, you're a musician, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, do you want to fill the slot on Wednesday? One of the musician guy can't do it. The regular dude." And I was like, well, I can't do it solo, but I could do it duo with my wife. And he went, yeah, great, lock it in. So I went, sweet. So I ran home and I said, Sib, hey, we got a gig next week. And Sib was like, what are you going to play? So
that's hilarious.
So I think I had 5 days, and I had a guitar, and I'd always played like a little bit of guitar, but not really, never taken it seriously or anything. Could strum some chords. And
the Maori, the Kiwi Maori school of guitar playing, the four chords and you go.
But I can't sing like those guys, unfortunately.
I got some family who are Maoris, and they all know the same four. They've got half a dozen chords, and they all sing like angels, man. And every party,
oh man, it's amazing.
Every party's a great party.
Culture.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I wish that was part of our culture here in Australia. That'd be
awesome.
So good. Yeah, maybe one day. So I just smashed it. Like I just absolutely smashed it every waking hour between then and the gig, and got through. Bought a speaker. I remember I bought a little Mackie speaker.
Nice.
And bought a little mixing desk off some guy off Gumtree or something for 50 quid, and rigged up this shitty little rig and made it work. And it went really well. And the guy said, hey, do you want to do this regularly? So we did. And then that became that regular Wednesday slot that we kind of became our thing. I don't know how else to say that, but we ended up being there for over 8 years.
Amazing.
And playing almost every Wednesday there, but we built a real little community around that. And that kind of became, a big part of our lives, really, like, especially from a social point of view. And a lot of our friends had come down. I mean, it was so great. That so many years of that gig, you get all these different waves of people that were, you get a bunch of people for a couple of years, and then they'd kind of, London's quite kind of
transitory.
Like so, people would kind of move on. So then a new bunch had come through, and met so many people that are now friends around the world through that gig. And I'm so grateful for that. And so, so that was cool. So, and that was kind of the introduction to, baptism of fire of like learning how to play guitar. And then just fumbled my way around on guitar for a while, and all of a sudden the gigs just started taking off as the duo thing. And it just became a lot easier to make money that way.
Yeah.
And it kind of was like a gradual thing. And then I remember by about 2014 or so, I remember it was just like, I'm not really playing bass anymore. I was lucky to pick up. I mean, I was lucky to pick up a couple of session things with this guy, Adrian Hall, who was amazing and really great, kind of became a bit of a, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but a bit of a mentor, really, like in the production world. And He's a fantastic mix engineer and producer kind of dude. Super knowledgeable, super kind, lovely guy. If you ever, need someone, he's amazing. And he had this studio in, like I guess like Surrey kind of vibes, just out of London. Actually, maybe it is London, just kind of like south a bit. And yeah, he got me in I was doing did a bunch of sessions with him throughout those years on bass, which was really cool. And at that time, I was also moving into doing the studio stuff. I'd started hiring studios and like as a you know a member of the studio, I guess,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot of those places, you would get certain numbers of days a month. Yeah, my friend Antonio Hannah, who I met through that, who he has a Freefall Studios, and he was great. We had this studio in Old Street for a while, and then moved out of that, moved into this studio called Bauman Studio in Chelsea, and that was amazing for me. I loved that studio. I was there for I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years or something, or I don't know if I'm getting that wrong, but somewhere around that. That was I love that place and did a lot of recording there for friends and yeah, just I hate saying music producer just because I fucking hate it when people say I'm a music producer because I've got a fucking laptop and GarageBand.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of hate saying that, but that was really where I started to learn and really stretch out the production chops
Yeah.
In that environment and pushing myself really hard. The deal with that place was I can't really remember the amount of days. I think it was we got 8 days a month.
Right.
I had 8 days a month, but I could split them into like 8 day. It was 8 24-hour days. So I could split it into a 12
Right.
like our day shift and a 12-hour night shift or something, which was so cool. So I ended up doing like, I'd just be in there, man, 2014, 15, I was just in there so much in doing night shifts, and that's when I pulled together the first Siboney and Andy EP in that place and did some recording with friends. What did I do there? Like did some stuff with Jimmy Nolan.
Yep.
Think you guys, Will Udall, of course,
Yep, of course.
I believe's been on your pod. And
was the first episode actually.
Was he really?
Number one.
Awesome. Cool. Will's such a dude. I'm actually we're pulling together his original stuff at the moment
That's
in a
great.
live context. Man, it's been so much fun working over his stuff.
I love his original stuff, man.
So do I. It's got such a vibe, and I loved work. I did his. I think you know that I did his last album in the other studio, in that one that you went to.
Yeah.
That's now gone as well. Man, this crazy thing has happened. So I was also in this studio before the one at Old Street. There was this one in like Clapham Common. It was kind of like more of a shared art space kind of studio. And then that one in Old Street, and then the one in Bauman's, and then I went to this other like I kind of downgraded. I actually were planning to move to America for a while, so
I remember that.
Yeah, so I made this move where I got out of the Bauman studio thing and got this kind of shittier, smaller space. It was a bit cheaper just to put all my gear in and just have a little space to work from, but it was a bit of a dump. And not really treated properly or anything, it was pretty kind of amateur hour vibe. Yeah, so, but they ended up, because we didn't end up moving to Americas because, again, back to the visa thing, it was just as Trump got in and we had, man, we put so much time into this visa and thought it was all going to go ahead. It was talking to this visa lawyer, and luckily she was kind of friends of our friends out there. And eventually she just kind of told us to pull the plug. She's like, Trump had just got in. She's like, I don't know what's going on, but a whole bunch of the ones I've just put forward have been rejected. So my advice is don't do it because you're just going to lose. It was like $6,000 or something. She's like, you're just going to lose your money.
Oh my God.
So it was like, we were like living at that point, all like we'd sold all our shit, sold our furniture. We had all our light, like PA gear and all our guitars and all my studio stuff like in storage. So every gig we're like driving to the storage unit and like load, and then going like stay in a room somewhere. Oh man. And it was like, oh shit, I guess we're staying in London. So anyway, so I ended up taking that other studio. And then I moved to that studio called Avery in, when was that? It's kind of like Chiswick, kind of vibes,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it's around Chiswick somewhere.
Acton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know really what you call that area. So I should remember, really. I was there for quite a long time in the end. So what happened was every single one of those studios that I just mentioned, bar the last one, every single one got taken over and by a developer
What?
after I left. Yeah, or as I was leaving. Yeah.
My word.
So yeah, kind of crazy. And then that one, did you hear about that? That
No.
studio ended up so I don't really know what happened. Blev, Graham Blevins he was kind of the studio kind of manager dude, part of that main one of the main guys there. Something happened with like the studio manager for the whole entire complex, because there were a whole bunch of studios there. He like went to jail or something, and then they had 24 hours to get all their stuff out there. And I think Blev had been in that studio for 15 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they had it was wild. So that happened just after I left.
Imagine how much shit you build up in 15 years in a studio.
I know. And it was kind of like that in there. I love that place, but it was
man.
definitely like, it felt like things had been there for a while. It was cluttered. Yeah. Behind that, did you ever see behind that desk? It was just like about a foot deep of just cables that had like been plugged in and gone, oh, that one doesn't work, just pull it out.
Yeah. Oh my God. In one day, you got to get all that out of there.
Yeah. So I don't know what they're doing, but I guess it's telling stories in some weird way, because of what happened with the COVID thing. I think it ended up being like a massive blessing in disguise, because they ended up not having to
mothball everything.
have to pay studio rent with no one coming in for this whole time. And that can be a pretty heavy thing. So yeah, so all that to say, that was kind of happening as the gigs thing were happening, and then I was playing guitar. God, this is a side-tracking story, isn't it? And then playing guitar, and so basically I kind of fell into guitar playing by accident. And then just pretty recently, I'd say within the last couple of years, I kind of realized that I couldn't say anymore that I'm not a guitar player.
You are a guitar player.
I've been doing this too long. I played too many gigs on guitar now to when I introduce myself, say I'm a bass player, but I pretend I'm guitar.
That's right.
So, but what coincided with that was going, I need to start working on this a bit more. So I have just a little, as I said, I'm terrible at study. I'm terrible at practice. I'm so stop-start. All or nothing kind of vibe.
I'm starting to get
really
that vibe
bad.
with the cramming all the time, man.
Oh, dude, just story of my life.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So then So I have been practicing a fair bit of guitar lately, and playing guitar in Will's band, which is really fun.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is cool. And but also, what was also happened moving back to Perth is everyone in Perth knows me as a bass player, which is great because I'm getting all these calls for playing bass. And it's kind of something that hasn't really been part of my life for a long time. And I've definitely lost a lot of facility, but I think a lot of other things have been gained. That's what I tell myself so I can sleep at night. But you know what I mean? I do think a lot of other things have been, like all the guitar playing has been really good for ear stuff. And because I do all the loop pedal thing, that's been really, I've done thousands of gigs now where I'm not only playing to click, but I'm creating the click and the groove and creating tracks and
what you do with your suitcase kick and everything. The show you had over here in London was really great, and it sounded ridiculously good.
Thank you.
And obviously,
actually, it's constantly growing and changing.
The beatboxing stuff was awesome too, man.
Oh, thanks. To be honest, that's kind of I've moved that. So that's taken a bit more of a backseat now. I ended up getting a drum pad thing. I started playing some drums when the COVID thing happened last year, which is something I've always wanted to. I had my old kit back there, this old Pearl kit I had from. What was also great about coming back to Australia is I'd stashed a whole bunch of music stuff for like 10 years at my parents' place, essentially above like an attic in a shed kind of a thing,
Oh God! And
it was really cool discovering all these cool old things. Yeah, like a lot of it was kind of junky, but some of it was really great. And I had this old Pearl kit that I'd got, and this old 70s export or something. Yeah, it's cool. It's like kind of funky and whatever. But that's kind of my vibe. I'm definitely I like guitars and instruments that have a
bit of character,
an interesting voice and a bit of character. I've got like some nice guitars. I got like a what the hell is that guitar? I got like a 78 Strat. That's a beautiful guitar. I never play it because it's just so boring to me.
Is that the one with the big headstock?
Yeah, yeah. Can
Yeah, man,
can
for
you?
sure.
Is this me? Yeah, let me. I'll just grab it. Hold on. Here it is.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, I like
Put my
that.
headphones back in.
That's
Yeah,
cool, man.
yeah. It's cool. So I picked it up. I picked this up, and my this guy, which is this is like the love of my life. Apart from Sid, it's my it's a 75p bass.
Yeah,
Strung up with flats. That's a killer instrument. That
that's
one.
awesome,
Let me just
man.
throw this down one sec. Sorry. So
Yeah, I love.
anything
I love
you
the big.
just said, I did not hear.
I love the. I love the big
There you
headstocks
go.
on the
Sorry.
70 Strats, man.
What was that? Sorry.
I said I love the big headstocks on the 70 Strats.
Oh yeah, man, that thing is heavy as sin. Let me
Right.
tell you, it is so heavy. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of. But I end up kind of playing these funky, weird guitars that got this like 335 lawsuit era kind of copy
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I left at my parents' house.
Yeah,
Man, I freaking love that guitar.
yeah. But I mean, if you're coming at guitar, see, this is the thing. Like I'm, like I'm a bit of a purist. Like I mean, I
Yeah.
stopped playing guitar, not stopped, but cut back. I played bass for a couple of years, and I
didn't know that. We've
Yeah.
never talked about that.
I played bass
That's amazing.
I played bass in
Really?
a new metal band, man, for like 2 years.
Pick or
No.
using fingers?
Thumbs, all slap.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to be Fieldy from Korn.
I knew you were about to say that.
But I credit that with any sort of rhythmic sophistication that I have as far as like kick pedals. But I also played like in my earlier 20s, I played in like a math rock prog band.
Oh, dude,
So
that's
that-
crazy.
That the stuff where it's changing time every bar and stuff like that. And I played with one of the best
Yeah.
drummers in Australia, a guy by the name of Grant Collins. He had the biggest
Ah.
drum kit in the Southern Hemisphere for a while. Amazing guy.
Wow.
Total weirdo and just a genuinely beautiful person. Like,
Mm.
and
They often go hand in hand, those two things.
yeah, and we would just sit and compose these 15-minute things, which he used for some of his tours
Wow.
and stuff. But I then went from that to playing like slap bass, and I sort of credit that with any sort of groove that I have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Totally. There's so
Playing
the
other
bass
instruments
playing
is great.
Stuff, yeah. The bass playing stuff. I'm very, very grateful for having that as my foundation as a musician.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the still the way I hear music. I always say I hear music from the bottom up.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
the first thing that hits me is the bottom end and what's happening with the groove.
Yep.
Depending on the style of music, but I approach guitar like that. I definitely go for what I lack in everything else. I try to make up for in groove.
but I mean, to be fair, like unless you're someone who's specializing in like widdly diddlies, the guitar is primarily an accompanying instrument. So its role is to rap the
often,
voice.
yeah.
So it's unless you're
Yeah.
a wanker like me
Yeah.
who just plays way too many notes. Like that's the
Oh
best
man,
way to
I
think
wish
about
I
it.
could.
No, you
I
don't.
really, really wish I
You
could.
really
but,
Listen, we're
Oh,
we're
dude.
gonna have to wind it up, man. We haven't even
Oh
got
yeah,
into.
dude, I'm rambling.
No, it's wonderful. So when you moved back to Perth, that was the end of 2019.
Yeah. Yep. We went kind of via LA. Saw our friends. Have you ever met Harry? Our friends Harry Kipner.
I don't think so.
They're our mates. He's a great songwriter and musician and singer out in LA. So we went to hang and write some songs with him. And then came back to Perth.
And so how did you got out of Dodge just in time, as such?
Yeah.
How-
it was just
how-
uncanny timing.
Yeah. How was your
Yeah.
experience coming back to Perth when the COVID thing hit?
Yeah. I mean, it was. Well, I guess there are a few things I'd say. The first thing is that we were lucky to be able to work, and we got a lot of gigs. We're really, really. I feel very grateful to. We've been very welcome back into the Perth little music community. Oh, I shouldn't say little. It's vibrant here. It's amazing what's going on in this town. It's crazy high level of talent, and
Really?
a lot of people. I think partly because of the uni just cranking out these musicians. there's just also like kind of that small town thing that happens where people think they need to be better than they do. What I mean by that is like, it's like when you don't have anything, when you're not in New York or London or something, you can't, you're imagining that these like jam nights, or you're imagining these things. So these guys, I was never one of those guys, but a lot of these dudes, they will just shred and shred and shred many hours, and just thinking, I need to be that, I need to be that. And from what I've heard a million times over is these guys get to these cities and they're like, oh, to be honest, to be completely blunt, when we first moved to London, I was kind of shocked that the standard wasn't higher. And I don't, this kind of sounds like I'm being an asshole. What I mean is that really just to say the standard in Perth, even back in those days, guys like, I don't know if you know any of these dudes, but like, or in the jazz world, like Troy Roberts, Graham Blem is another one, another sax player. Dane Alderson, bass player, extraordinary, now plays for Yellow Jackets. Andy Fissenden, Grant Windsor, a whole bunch of these guys that they've been kind of gone through like the James Morrison band thing and been touring, and they're just the most ridiculous musicians almost on the planet. And they're all like young and just killing. So there was this real scene happening in Perth at that time. And we went over to London and expecting that was going to be like, there was going to be that and more, and it was definitely a few, just a couple of drops below that,
It's funny you say that, because I'd traveled to London quite a few times to play music over the years, and when we decided to move across, and I'd always hit like, his friends said, you got to go to this place or that place, where you'd go and there'd be like ridiculous players and stuff, and I was like, okay, and part of our motivation, my motivation moving to London was to get my ass kicked, because in where I was in Brisbane, I never really, and once again, it sounds really arrogant, but I sort of got to the point in Brisbane where I never really, it was easy. And I'm not saying I'm the best guitar player or the best singer, but it was just comfortable.
Sure.
And to get to London.
Totally get you.
Well, I expected, and it's probably the same as Perth. Like Brisbane's got a really good conservatorium, and the level of musicianship in some of the circles in Brisbane is fucking really high. Like some of the best musicians I've worked with still are from Brisbane. Like just world-class monsters. And I expected when I went to London that to be the ground floor, like the best players in Brisbane to be the ground floor. And when I got there, I realized much the same as you. I hit like, when you hit the ground, you go to everything. And I was walking out of rooms going, that was bad. Like that was bad.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, there were definitely some nights, not to be completely negative, there are some nights that are just crazy high level.
Don't get me wrong. Like, and some of
the Troy Bar stuff, and like downstairs at Ronnie's.
Yeah.
I mean, doing the jazz, the heavyweight jazz guys. I mean, there are some spots, but the general. I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of the jam night vibe thing, but as far as they go, I mean, I did a lot of them, but it's definitely not my scene.
Well, probably the first 2 years first 2 years I was over here, I just hit jam nights all the time.
I think I vaguely remember my introduction to you was not a jam night, but I think maybe Will Udall said, "Oh, there's this new guy in town, Ben Eaton. He's like a motherfucker of a guitar player and whatever, and keep an eye out for him, and if you need a guitar player or something, and that was, I think, the first I'd heard about you."
Yeah. Well, that was,
and I think it was from a jam night at like in, I don't know how I'm remembering this, but I think maybe in like, what was that one that happened in like Portobello?
Show your hands. Show your hands in the Mau Mau Bar over in Nottingham.
Right, that was the one.
Yeah,
that was one.
Portobello Road.
So I think it was that one or something. Maybe Will was talking about. And,
I hit that every Wednesday night for a year.
There you go. And did that kind of give you heaps your network as well?
Great. Set me up. That and
it's crazy, isn't it?
That and another open mic night was called the Old Fashioned Jam Night.
Oh yeah.
It was the Old Fashioned open mic, and it's still going, but it's obviously not at the moment. But that
I've actually seen you put some stuff up about that. I was always under the impression that you were kind of running that.
No. Well, what happened was when I first got here, from the connections I've made from visiting over the years, a woman, sort of a friend of mine, said you should go and do this gig. I went and did this gig on a boat, and I met these
Right.
people there, Stella and Jack, who are like the nicest people in the world. Bit like yourself,
Awesome.
they're partners. He plays
Oh,
guitar
cool.
and
Yeah,
she
yeah, yeah.
sings. And they said, we're starting this jam night next month. We'd love you to come down. And I was like, okay, but the stipulation with that, it's all got to be pre-65 stuff. So you got to sing all pre-1965 gear,
Whoa.
which is cool. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I
Wow, I would
went,
struggle there.
well, I went to the very first one, and I was like,
Mm.
and I had no idea what to expect. I turned up and I prepared like, I don't know, a bunch of different stuff, and you just get up and do one song. So you've just got to,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
you've got to get up and you've just got to go. Everything's at 11.
Right.
Go.
Yeah.
You know, luckily enough, I can do that for
Yeah.
short bursts. And I met so many amazing musicians through that jam night, and it's really cool because everyone dresses
That's
up
cool.
in like flapper dresses, and everyone wears suits, and it's really a theme night. So that one and the Mau Mau
That's
Bar.
cool. That's got a cool. That sounds like it's got a cool vibe. I guess when I say I'm not a fan, I got sick of the. Oh man, there's just so much wank and bullshit at some of those nights.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys, drummer will get up and every fucking drummer is boom, clap, boom,
Yeah.
boom, clap, boom. And it's like, fuck, have you ever actually listened to D'Angelo, you motherfucker? It drives me crazy. Like everyone plays those same grooves and
Yep.
it's like, you're not even listening to each other. I don't know.
Yep.
I really got sick of that show-offy kind of vibe. And I'm sorry to be super negative about that. It's fine, but it serves a purpose and it's great for what it does. And
But I think the difference between that, like doing that in London and doing that in Perth, and the reason why I came here is like you can be in a bar in London and play a really good song, and somebody will go, "Hey, you want to come on a tour with me to Denmark?" Which just it doesn't happen as much in Australia.
True.
True. And just because of the geographics of it.
Oh man, yeah, crazy. Yeah, it's so crazy, isn't it?
You know, that's why and that basic, then I ran a corporate band for like 3 years, and that's where I got most of my musicians from was jam nights, because you meet a guy, and it wasn't always the best players that I would book either. It's the guys that could play a groove and weren't fuckwits.
Dude, I mean, that's such a thing to talk about. I remember I was doing this. It was like a small tour, but kind of a big tour at the same time. I was really young. And it was like a rock the schools. But so we'd go around and it was like in this like kind of pop punky kind of band. And but they put on these big shows, like full rigged out shows. And I think the tour went for like 5 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks or something, going all through like Victoria and New South Wales. And it was cool. It was a great experience. I remember asking the kind of guy that had put it together, who was a friend of mine, Mike, and we were on the bus and I just kind of said, man, why'd you call me? There's so many other dudes you could have called, you know? And I remember his answer was, well, I think you got a great sound and like you're cool to hang out with.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, you're going to be sitting on a bus or whatever with this guy for like a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that's thank God, you know, maybe I've got a little bit of personality. I think that's probably one of the only reasons I still get employed.
But I mean, that's just such a secret, isn't it? You can be the absolute best musician in the world.
Yeah.
If you're a monster to deal with, people don't want to work with you. And it's just, I mean, the same can be said across all of any industry, I guess. You can have ridiculous skills, and if you're just an asshole, people won't want to book you. But I think, especially with the hyper pressurized situations you get into in the music business, like, you know, even if it's just a corporate band, like, you know, I would take bands to Europe, and if someone goes on the trip and they're an asshole, and, you know, like someone's really particular about something and won't bend, and it costs the company or you like an extra 100 or you know, £300 to book a seat because you've got to have the instrument's got to have a seat. It's like, that's cool, but next time you won't get the call.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
just
it's such a thing. But also, I don't really feel like it should even have to be talked about. I mean, if you're the kind of guy that has to hear that, it's already like it's already too late.
Yeah. But I mean, sometimes if you're not blunt about it, sometimes you can just say, look, man, you know, like, this is what it is. This is the gig. It's not Wembley. We're doing this function. Yeah. It is, you know, like Tuscany or something. It's somewhere beautiful. Yeah. But, you know, we're the band, so we just do the job, and then
you know what? As I said that, I wonder if I've ever been that guy. Maybe I have. You know, not even knowing.
I don't think so, mate.
Or like, but like everyone has their moments, right? So maybe they've been, so maybe, it is good to be reminded of that. I'm just,
Just turn up on
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Make sure you know the music, and
yeah,
then just don't be an asshole. And then
yeah,
that's it. And the rest
yeah,
is
yeah,
just having fun, And what do they say?
yeah,
You get paid for the travel and the setup, not the actual performance. Performance you do for free.
yeah.
It's all the shit around the performance that you get paid for.
Right.
So
Right,
that's what I try and live
that's
by.
a cool idea. Yeah.
Hey, listen, let's just do the speed round, and then we'll have to.
Yeah, man. Cool. I don't know what's going to happen here. What kind of, how much speed are we doing, dude?
Well, when I when I say speed round, it almost is never a speed round.
Okay.
So basically, it's just a bunch of sort of little random questions about music and things, just to sort of and just tie a bow and stuff. So
Yep.
okay, so
Right.
who's your favorite artist right now?
Can I say a couple?
Yeah.
There are a couple of artists that come to mind. Blake Mills.
Why do I know that name?
So he's an amazing guitar player, but a great singer songwriter. He's also a producer. I guess he's one of those guys that I kind of really, as my own little self, like kind of that's one of the few that you kind of like, that's kind of the pinnacle of who I want to be as a musician and music guy, So man, you should check him out, by the way. He's crazy. He just did this album with Pino Palladino. I don't know if you saw that stuff going around, that instrumental stuff.
That's where I know him from. I was just reading an interview with Pino recently.
Right. So he's got a whole bunch of like folk well, at least two folk albums before that with him singing and kind of strumming. He's got some crazy like finger picking kind of bizarre stuff. He's an amazing guitar player. He's also done a bunch of stuff with like Wolfpack and bands like that. In that kind of circuit. Phoebe Bridgers is another one that
you mentioned
was a
earlier.
big one for me in recent years, that I keep coming back to. Yeah. Who else? I don't know. Maybe we should just leave it at that.
That's cool, man. Blake Mills, Phoebe Bridgers.
Yeah. Chris Thile. Do you know him?
No.
He's a mandolin player. And actually, I would say he and Blake both do a similar thing, as in they are masters of their instrument, but they can still sing a simple folk song and not shit all over it.
Yeah.
And it's about that. And he's worth checking out. He kind of came up as a in this band called Nickel Creek. It's I think, as far as I'm aware, probably one of the greatest mandolin players to have ever lived. He's an absolute freak. He can play bebop, and he's just like I reckon you'll love him.
Chris Thile.
Yeah, Thile. Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely going to follow.
Yeah, check him out. I mean, those guys. Yeah, Phoebe because her songs like, and the other guys because of their songs, but also because I just love them as who they are as musicians.
Awesome. What's your favorite song right now?
I guess I should pick one of their songs.
You don't have to. It's just, top of mind.
Yeah. What's off the top of my mind? Favorite song right now? What have I been listening to? Let's go with one of Chris Thile's songs. There's a song that kind of, sometimes you hear a song, you're not really sure why you love it so much, or what even. There's this song and it's called, I think it's called Love of Mine. Should I check that? I think it's called Love of Mine, and it's with his band Nickel Creek. Okay. Spotify. Hold on. There it is. Love of Mine.
Love of Mine, Chris Thile.
And it which sounds like this like love song. What's great about it lyrically is he's singing about he wants the love. He's in love with the love part of it, but not the person.
Yes.
And it's quite an interesting little take on a love song, which is pretty hard to come by nowadays.
Love of Mine. Okay, cool.
Love Mine. Yeah, that's a cool song. And it's got I'd love for you to check it out because it's got a very interesting modulation into I'm such a geek with this stuff. He's got a very, very interesting modulation into the chorus.
Okay.
Have a listen and see if you can. I don't think I've ever heard, it sounds beautiful and it's such an interesting whoa kind of moment.
It was like a
Check it out.
parallel
See what you
harmony
think.
or something, is it?
It's just like, yeah, it's the chorus is in a different key to the,
Okay.
yeah, I think I can't actually remember. I'm trying to imagine the song in my head. What actually happens? Just have a listen. But I think it has something to do with like a major 6 chord and then turning that major 6 chord into the 1 chord or something. I think it's one of those kind of,
See, I
but
love
maybe
that.
even maybe a little more clever than that. But yeah,
I
yeah,
love
something
that
like
shit, man, where it's clever pop. So you take a really simple
Oh,
present
dude,
and just
big
invert
fan
it.
of that stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
that's my wife leaving.
Oh.
Not forever. Just to pick up our child. Yeah, that's the sort of pop I really like. Is you've got this beautiful, like,
dude.
lovely premise, and then it's just like, just gets twisted 30 degrees, and you're like, just catches your ear, and you're bored in. I love that
Yeah.
stuff. I love it.
Yeah, so do I. So do I.
What was the last song you listened to?
It would have been, I'm prepping for a gig, not for pleasure.
Okay.
It's another part of what we do
Yep.
as people that play music for a living, is that I'm prepping for a show this Friday with a guy called Adam Hall, who's an amazing trumpet player, singer dude, kind of front man, like, it's awesome. He's really great, like showman kind of vibe.
Yep.
He's got a killer band. And I don't know how the hell I got the call.
What are you on, bass or guitar?
I'm on bass, which is
Nice.
like really, it's really fun. I've done a few gigs with him now. We did this Stevie Wonder tribute kind of thing, and it was cool. Like it was a really great venue, amazing sound. It was really fun. I mean, playing some of the best music written, contemporary music written with a killer band, with killer sound. It was really pleasurable, a really pleasurable experience.
It's kind of what you do.
We're doing it. Yeah, we're doing a similar kind of show, which is like, I'm not usually a fan of these kind of tribute-y kind of things, but I got to say, I did that Stevie one and loved it. And maybe because the reps are made, especially the bass player, man.
So much pocket. Cool. It's all pocket.
Yeah, dude. And I'm a huge fan of Nate Watts, the bass player for his band. I amazingly got to meet him a long time ago, and Stevie as well. It's kind of funny. I always say I met him. It's like, and Steve, I got to be Steve one.
Whatever.
As the afterthought.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been obsessed with his bass lines. Yeah, so we're doing like a similar thing, but it's like a Bruno Mars show. But actually, the Bruno Mars bass lines they're
wicked,
like, phenomenal,
wicked,
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's kind of like learning MJ stuff, lots of synth based stuff that I'm kind of having to adapt. Yeah, bit of a roast. I'm also filling in for this bass player in town called Roy Martinez, who is one of my favorite, talking about like bass influences. This guy, one of my favorite bass players ever. He's just an amazing human. The most ridiculous player. I mean, I would love for you to see him play. He's just pocket groove, but has all the chops. He's just kind of got it all while still having his own kind of sound and take on it, and sounding like him always, he's just amazing. And still, he's a bit older than me, he's probably, I don't even know, he must be in his like late 40s or 50s or something. Actually probably his 50s now. Sorry, Roy, for mentioning that. You still look beautiful, mate. And just still, the other thing I love about Roy is he's like obsessed with music to this day.
Yeah.
Like, he's not jaded at all. And it's something that I have always been really aware of. I really don't want to be that jaded guy that shits on, fuck, Spotify is not paying me enough. And like, I just want to adapt and change and like move with the world. And it's, these moments can be incredibly frustrating and definitely worth fighting back against. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying be walked all over, but I am saying don't be like, well, it's not how it used to be, mate. Back in my day.
We've all met
really
that guy
hate
at the bar.
Yeah, I really hate. Well, honestly, we've all met that musician, right? We've all been on gigs with that musician, and I really have, since I was really young, had it in my head, I don't want to be that guy. So, and Roy's the epitome of not that guy.
Yeah, cool.
He's like, he's getting a little bit, he's not super young anymore. Is probably the best way to say it, and he's kind of getting into that zone where he could be kind of jaded, but he's like, man, every time I talk to him, he's like, man, have you checked out this? Have you checked out this? Oh, dude, hey, that bass. Hey, oh, whatever, like, loves it. Just so passionate and
inspiring.
So, man, It's amazing. So I'm feeling it for him, who's like one of my favorite bass players on the planet, and the guy that can play everything. And I'm like, oh man, of all the guys to fill in for, it's like, oh geez, the band's going to be expecting that, and they get little old me.
You'll crush it, man. You'll crush it.
No, it's fine. It's all good. You know, like I'm kind of joking, but not at the same time.
What was the
like
last,
it'll be fine.
What was the last album you listened to from start to finish?
Probably that Blake Mills Pinot thing. I also checked out this chick the other day. I wonder if I can. Oh man, I wonder if I can remember her. Does Spotify have like a history thing?
I have no idea.
Oh yeah. So her name's, I actually don't know how to pronounce this name. That looks like an Irish name. Aoife, A-O-I-F-E. Can you say that?
Aoife O'Donovan.
Yeah, O'Donovan. And I think she's actually American. And I discovered her actually through, this is all kind of relevant to what I'm talking about. Sorry. Discovered her through a video I saw with Chris Thiele playing mandolin, and it just kind of popped up, and I loved it. I checked her album, man. That was pretty cool. You know,
excellent.
Kind of folky, nice stuff. Yeah, it's good to kind of discover new things every now and then.
Absolutely, man.
You know,
that is one thing that Spotify is good for.
Well, it's as a consumer. This is what I always say. As a consumer, it's an amazing product.
It's a great tool.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, how we listen to music nowadays has changed so much.
What song?
The other thing I found when I was going to say, I keep shitting on. The other thing I found at my parents' house was like a stack of CDs, like about a kilometer high.
Oh man!
And it was like, what do I do with all this?
I can't even remember what I did. We sold, like I got rid of CDs ages ago, and then we sold all of our CDs. I think I just gave them away.
Yeah,
but I had like really old ones from like old like metal bands and stuff from the 90s and stuff. Like, I even gave away.
Totally. I had all my stuff from when I was a teenager.
Yeah, I think I even got rid of like signed stuff as well, because I thought, what, it just sits there. It's not doing anything.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I'm never going to play it because I don't even have a CD player. So what I did was
I took all the... yeah, exactly. So I took all the cases. I took all the CDs out of the cases and then just left like a stack. I was like, that doesn't take up much room, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
When they're all stacked up like that, and threw out a bunch, and threw any good ones I was trying to throw into charity, and the rest I was just like, I guess at some point
it's like
I'll throw these out.
that scene in Shaun of the Dead. Have you seen Shaun of the Dead when they've got the LPs and they're throwing it at the guy? And they're saying, "You want to keep this one?"
Right.
And it's just like, no. It's like, anyway, what song do you wish you had written?
I guess many songs. There's pretty much anything by Paul Simon, I'd say. Okay, I'll go for "Still Crazy After All These Years." I think is one of the best songs that's ever been written.
Yep.
I think every time I hear 4 a.m, that major what's it, first inversion major 7 chord. It's like how I hear that chord. Whenever I hear that chord played, I think of the bridge of that song.
It's a signature sound.
Funny, but I love that song. I still every time I hear it, I love it, you know? Never get sick of it.
What's your do you have a favorite like guilty pleasure artist, something you listen to that other people might see as cheesy or
you know, like I'll stand by anything I listen to. Is that a bad answer?
No.
Like I just don't think there's any, like, if you like it, you listen to it. Why is it guilty? You know,
I have that with I've been watching this guy on YouTube. He calls it the Daily Doug. It's the Daily Doug.
Okay.
He's a classical composer, and he goes through and listens to like prog and metal and like guitar players and stuff. And he's done a bunch of stuff on Iron Maiden, and Iron Maiden was my first, like, outside of bands that your mum and dad listened to, like my first real.
It was one of your discoveries.
Well, I grew up playing and listening to like Deep Purple, but also like Bob Dylan and the Furies, like Irish folk music and all that sort of stuff.
My dad was a big fan of the Furies.
Oh man,
he was singing Sweet 16.
Oh.
Is that what's called? Yeah, all the time.
And the oh, how we danced on the night we were wed.
Beautiful.
But
my headphones chose to pop out just.
Oh,
at that
sorry.
moment. Whatever the universe wants to say about that, whatever.
It's just too. I just masculined it out of the slot. But Iron Maiden, like he did a thing like Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, which is one of their big concept albums, and I was like, you know what, this music is fucking great. It's really cheesy. It's
cool.
It's really it's like it's a concept album about the seventh son of the seventh son, like this guy that has healing powers and mystical powers, and each song is a different part of this like sci-fi novel, and it's super cheesy, and I fucking love it, man. It's great.
Yeah.
It's so
that's
good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I get what you're saying. So you kind of feel like there's a cheese factor.
Oh yeah.
But that's kind of part of the enjoyment. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some country music I like. Maybe that's probably because that verges a bit more on the cheese. To be honest, I'm not. Sibs, my wife's a big fan of pop music. And kind of she was the one that really introduced me to pop music. I never really listened to it or checked it out apart from having to learn it for cover bands. So that's been cool. You know, she'll show me stuff and that I think is like maybe cheesy, but I like it. So maybe that's, you know, sometimes she's got like this 90s playlist, you know, like full of like Spice Girls and
oh my God,
you know, that kind of stuff. But
I worked out with what's her face.
You know,
I worked out with Sporty Spice just in the last breakdown.
I guess if you're going to work out with any of the Spice Girls, you'd want to work out with the Sporty one.
she was at my gym, and I was like, I said,
wow, really?
Do I know you?
Which one was Sporty? I don't know anything about Spice Girls. Which one was Sporty?
She was the one that could sing.
There's
usually in those bands there's one that can sing. She was the one that could sing, and she was the one always in all the track suits.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Did
she have the pigtails?
Yes. No, not the one with the big boobs and the pigtails. That was Baby Spice.
God,
she was the sporty one.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Geez.
But she was. I said, "Do I know you?" And she looks a lot like somebody I know in Australia.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was like, "Do I know you?" And she was like, probably." And I said, "Right."
That must be so annoying for her.
and she goes, "Yeah, I'm a singer." And I was like, "Oh, I get you." And I knew who it was. And I went, "Okay, great." Yeah. And I just left her alone because she doesn't be bothered by some bald guy in a gym, man. So, but it was just really weird.
Or
I was
any guy.
yeah, exactly. But she was like, man, she was crushing it. She was absolutely.
Oh, really?
Oh man, sporty is appropriate.
She earned her name.
Oh man, she is super strong.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
That's cool. Oh, great.
Made me look like a putz.
Yeah, a lot of those like 90s songs were really great though.
Yeah.
You know, like really great songwriting and cool hit production.
Yep.
Definitely like some cheesy elements, but there was often like a core of something that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Some cool modulation or harmony stuff, or like a really interesting like Waterfalls.
TLC.
The groove of that is so the swing on that's so heavy for that tempo is super interesting. You know, things like that. I would, you know,
nice horn lines in that song too.
Yeah, are they real or are they?
I couldn't tell.
Oh, they sound real, don't they?
They sound real.
Yeah.
That time and a place, they probably could afford session musicians. So
that's true. They were big budget albums as well, weren't they? So yeah.
So last question: what other skill do you wish you had outside of music? What's a skill that you wish you had? If I could just wave a magic wand and give you that skill.
Outside of music, yeah. What's outside of music? I'm a pretty massive geek, which is part of the music production thing. I think, you know, someone has said that thing before, like 50% of music production is fixing your computer or something. So, you know, it's like, I feel like something maybe in that world or actually, you know, maybe like something in design. I love design. Or you know what? I'm going to change that. Electronics.
Yeah.
I love electronics.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's this guy on YouTube called Look Mum No Computer. This guy called Sam, and he's crushing it on YouTube now. He's got so many Patreons and supporters and you subscribe. I mean, it's insane, but he fixes up all these old things. And I just love it. I love watching that channel and being able to, I love that idea of getting something old and funky and reviving it and or changing it or getting a preamp and messing with the
Or soldering,
and
actually
pieces.
soldering capacitors and resistors and stuff like that.
And I dabble a little bit,
Yeah.
I fix a lot of, so I mean, part of just being a musician, I feel, is also just constantly fixing gear, especially in the gigging world.
Oh, dude.
So the amount of pedals and mixing boards and whatever I've had to solder, fix up little solder joints on PCBs and stuff. But I've just started making little kits and stuff. I really enjoy that. So I'd like to know. I'd love to know the theory behind what I'm doing there. Instead of just following a
Schematic,
manual or a schematic and just and just going, hey, that's where I put that, and then it will work. Being able to kind of troubleshoot it, or that, I would love that skill, man.
Well, speaking as someone who used to have that as part of their job, it's not that hard.
Oh, right, of course. I mean, that's interesting. So with your so I know we're probably going way over here, but with your like electronics background, so can you like troubleshoot a circuit and stuff? Can you pull out the probes? And
it's been a while. If you gave me the circuit diagram, yeah, I used to build.
Really?
Part of my job was to build control boxes for underground conveyor belts. So you'd go.
Oh, okay.
You would go to a place, and you'd be given this giant switchboard, which would be like, maybe this half the size of a human, and you'd have a giant schematic.
Wow.
You'd have to roll it out, and you'd have to sort of wire it up, and then you'd have all these different emergency pull switches and different, indicator lights and different variables and different motors. You'd have to power off different DC lines and stuff like that, and you'd just go and you'd do that, and then you'd hope it worked.
So what was your training in that?
I was an electrician.
Wow. So you actually did what is like an apprenticeship or something? Wow.
Four-year apprenticeship, and then I worked for a year as a tradesman, and then that was in the mines.
Yeah.
And then they pulled me out of my apprenticeship early because it's a 4-year apprenticeship. I got pulled out like just after 3 years, because they wanted me to run this section.
Oh.
And then I just quit.
Okay.
Because I hated it and wanted to die, and I had to get out of there.
Right. That sounds fair.
Before I drank myself.
So if you get like do you ever dabble with any of that kind of stuff?
Not anymore, nowadays, man. Like the last time I really used it was when I built my house in Australia. So I just
yeah.
So I wired it all up, and
And you're allowed to wire it.
Yeah.
Because normally you're not, are you?
No. Well, I went and got my. I went and renewed my license, because you have to go and do like an equivalency test. But that was like 12 years ago, maybe now.
If I have to do it again now.
Yeah, I mean, I could do it, but I wouldn't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've nearly died multiple times, so.
Oh wow!
I haven't actually worked as an electrician since
you died in 2009, and now this is an alternate reality.
Yeah, well, in this timeline, about 17 years is the last time I worked full time as an electrician.
Oh wow! Okay.
Actually, probably more.
That's like. Don't you feel like with those things like ages ago, it kind of feels like it wasn't even you? Do you ever feel like that? I always feel
totally.
Like that. It's like I don't feel I can really relate. When I was telling those stories about being younger, I can't really relate or put myself in those shoes anymore. It's too long ago.
I'm not that same person. When I was, if I look at the person I was when I was 15, and I've had this discussion with my own teenage child. When I look at the person,
wow, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Well, the person I was when I was 15 is a completely different person to the person I am now. I think your core values might remain, but
or at least get tweaked as you go along. But yeah.
Well, I think if you're generally a decent person when you're sort of 10, you're probably going to be a generally decent person when you're 40. If you're a bit of a prick and a bully when you're 10, you're probably going to be that when you're 40 or 50. You might go, you might have some revelations and trials by fire that might change you, but I'm definitely a much, how shall I say this? I don't want to say better person, just a more informed person now. I think that's, as you travel more and you see more of the world and you live through experiences, your perspective on what is right and wrong becomes a lot less myopic. When you're 10, the world is black and white. When you're my age, the world is just varying shades of grey.
Yeah, yeah.
you can't. Nothing's
Yeah.
right or wrong. Everyone thinks everyone's the
Yeah.
star of their own story. Most people
Yeah.
are motivated by what they think is right. Most people
Sure.
try and do the right thing or what they see as the right thing by themselves and
Yeah.
their community. So it's sort of like
Yeah.
there's not really any evil or good. There's just greed,
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. 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 Just like, yeah, totally, man. I mean, I couldn't agree more. You just kind of like moving through it. I don't know. I was thinking about like, as you were saying that with it's kind of like the thing I was talking about with the Spotify and music industry stuff and people being bitter and whatever. It's like, as long as you constantly reevaluating those parameters in your life and kind of saying, this is just my take on it anyway, is that I don't want any arrogance in to think I know better.
Yeah.
Because I mean, first of all, I know nothing. So I usually don't know better. And yeah, it's just like constantly like questioning myself.
Yep.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Is that thought
Yeah.
actually correct? Yep. And I think as long as you can keep that going, you'll continue to grow and change. And as the world changes around us and we're all changing, and it's just this kind of like morphing kind of thing that's constantly evolving. So it's kind of how I think about it.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it, mate.
Yeah, man.
Where can
hey,
people?
So nice talking to you.
Yeah, bro, it's been lovely. Actually, we've gone ridiculously over time.
Have we? Shit,
no,
man. I'm so sorry.
No,
I
it's
really
great.
once I get going.
This is podcasting, mate. This is why I like this art form. When you're on a roll, it's a wonderful thing. So where can people find out more about
I think like
you?
45 minutes of it was like ranting about Whopper.
Yeah.
Sorry, Whopper. Sorry for that.
Where can people find out more about you, mate?
If you go to Pornhub,
RedTube.
Well, I mean, you can check out. I mean, I don't know, whatever. Just don't even bother.
Siboney and Andy.
No, you can check out some of our music. Siboney and Andy. Siboney is spelled Siboney. And yeah, you can check out our music. We've got stuff up in the normal places. That'd be cool. I'm also about to put out a bunch of my own stuff under a bit of an alias called Violent Tide.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's about to come out. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. Yeah, it's fun to like. It's good like having a name that's not my own. By the way, I don't know. There's something about that makes it much easier. Yeah, I'm excited about that. It's very kind of this new stuff that I'm doing is like very singer-songwritery, folky, storyteller kind of vibes, which I'm really digging at the moment. So
awesome, man! Can't wait to hear it.
Bit of a different, little path all of a sudden. But yeah, I'm really thoroughly enjoying it.
So look out for
so
Violent
that'll be coming
Tide.
out soon.
Violent Tide.
Yeah, violent.
Awesome,
like.
All right, mate. Well, it's been lovely to chat with you.
Mate, so nice chatting.
And say g'day to Sib. We'll have to get her on the pod as well.
I will. Yeah. That'd be cool, actually.
I'll hassle her and I'll get the alternate take from yours.
Yeah. She can tell you how great Whopper is.
All right, bub. We'll take it easy.
Mate.
Hopefully I'll see you on a stage soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. See you, bro. Bye-bye.
All right, we stopped recording there, man.
Cool, mate. That was fun, man. I'm so sorry we went so over. I just looked at the time. I had no idea.
That's what happens, bro. If it's a conversation, you just have it. That's, as I said, that's why I love doing this stuff, because it's fun.
Yeah.
And
usually these kind of things get stopped because the set breaks over.
Yeah.
You gotta go.
Not in this one. I do actually have to fly though. So
mate, fair enough. I'm sorry to take so much of your time.
No, it was awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. I'll send Sib a message as well and see if she wants to do it as well. It'd be fun.
That's a cool idea. I like that idea.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have it. Yeah, I think you'd be the first husband and... No, I've had another husband and wife team on, actually.
Have you?
Yeah.
Man, I looked at you. See, you've done heaps of these now.
Yeah, I think this will be the 40th episode.
So you're doing kind of like one a week kind of vibe?
Yeah, trying to, depending on like life and...
Man, so cool. Yeah, cool. Look, I'll let you go, dude. I've taken up too much time, but...
all right, brother.
Yeah, so nice chatting, mate.
Say hi to Will and Sid.
I'll send you this audio as well.
Awesome. Say,
see you, bro.
I will. Tell Will I can't wait to hear some more of his music.
Oh, man, he's got a whole nother album planned, so...
And yours.
Yep. I'll send it over.
Yeah, man, do.
All right, bro.
Bye-bye. See ya.
See ya.